ladies and gentlemen, hopefully your mind isn't blown by the fact that there was a countdown in music at the beginning of this. Usually it's just me peering through bifocals at a screen, but we're getting fancy. That was my buddy Mas Donkey with a little intro music to the pod. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. This is episode 66 of the Adam Makes Beer Industry Pro podcast. Today, I'm excited to be chatting with Justin Crossley of the Brewing Network and the Hop Grenade in Concord, California. Before we get rolling, let me give a shout out to our fantastic sponsors that make content like this possible. Starting a brewery is a big step. Blickman Engineering is here to help. Since 2006, they've equipped hundreds of nano breweries for success. Their new 3.5 barrel Pro Surface electric brewing system cuts maintenance and saves at least 30 minutes per brew day with powerful under kettle heating. From 1 to 15 barrel brew houses to keg washers and grain mills, Blickman has what you need. Ready to go pro? Contact Filler Tom at ProSeries at blickmanengineering.com. Blickman Engineering is a proud sponsor of this channel and loves to help brewers at every stage of their journey. Tracking and managing the financial health of your brewery is a primary pillar of success. Check out my boy David Lentz at Brewed Fiscally. This man has the industry experience and skills you need so you can focus on growing your business. Bookkeeping, fractional CFO support, financial management system design, business plan review, hit up your boy. Check him out at brewedfiscally.com or shoot him an email at david@brewedfiscally.com. He's good people. Today's guest is Justin Crossley, founder of the Brewing Network and the host of the Session podcast. He began his career in terrestrial radio, but quickly realized that program directors tend to shun drinking on the job. He founded the BN to share his love of radio and beer and is known as the one person who can talk the most about beer without actually knowing anything about it. He also co-founded the Hop Grenade Tap Room and Bottle Shop in 2014 and is the president of Hop Grenade LLC, which basically means he just fixes a lot of toilets. Justin, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Look at my boy Meals all grown up in his own podcast.
I'm grinding, baby. You know what I mean? I'm out here. I'm out here trying to do my thing. You know.
I love it.
The funny thing is, Justin, is like there's a line between you want to sound like yourself, but also not sound like just like a monotone, boring person. I'm always worried of going like full like morning zoo radio host. That's the concern. It's like I can't go there, but I can't just be, monotone. So it's something that you kind of got to polish. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, there's a groove there. My girlfriend makes fun because she knows my on-air voice different than my regular voice, and I don't fully know the difference. But she's like, "Oh my God, you just flipped the switch, dude."
Yeah.
So there's a difference. Yeah, you're doing great.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I also the Blickman live read was given to me, but the Brewed Fiscally live read, that's mine. And I enjoy reading it out loud. I
love the sponsors who just let you. They're just like, no, just do your thing. Just make sure you don't say anything stupid. And I like that. Those are always my most fun. Yeah,
exactly. So this is such a I don't know. It's a crazy thing to me, man. I mean, I'm trying to think. The last time I saw you was probably at HomebrewCon when it was in Grand Rapids. Probably. In 2014, 2015, I remember doing karaoke at a local bar there close to the hotel where Andy Wood was doing some version of a Led Zeppelin song and absolutely tearing the place to the ground.
Black Dog, absolutely, that's his jam right there. Dude, I have to say, that's probably my favorite homebrew conference ever. The Grand Rapids one was like, I don't know, that was peak everything for me. I loved that conference. I loved that town. I loved that karaoke bar. Yeah. We threw a big old party at the baseball park there. Like that one, I'm glad you brought that one up. That was a good one.
When I remember at Palmer, this is one of my buddies, Andy. He and I brewed together on the pro side. One of our favorite memories of that one was the the quote unquote celebrity Brewers baseball game or whatever it was, and
Kickball.
I think Palmer was trying to like leg out a ground ball or something, and he was hauling and listen, I love John. John is one of the nicest guys I've ever met, but he got into one of those scenarios where it's like when, as a child, you're running down a hill and you realize that you're gaining too much speed and the legs start getting behind you. And he took a header. I mean, happening to John, I mean, that made it funny too. But yeah, it was pretty great.
Look, it's no secret that the Brewing Network is full of athletes. But I think shortly after that, I struck out trying to kick a ball also. But I will say watching John Palmer go down was both hilarious and terrifying for me. I thought I had hurt John Palmer and I was never going to forgive myself, and neither was all of the homebrewers in the world. It was a horrifying moment, but the kid gets up, dusts himself off, and he's the typical John Palmer. Like nothing happened.
He's a pro. He's a pro. So you mentioned, I've gone to a lot of conferences since then. You mentioned kind of really loving that conference. What was it like? What were some of those intangibles, or what were some of the things like on the ground that really set that one off for you?
I really like I like small towns, and Grand Rapids has it's a big town with a really small town feel. I just remember kind of walking everywhere that we went. That party at the baseball park, we were always trying to one up ourselves with another anniversary party. And our party always followed wherever the Homebrewers Conference was, so that our listeners didn't have to choose between flying to California for our party and going to the Homebrewers Conference. We wanted people to go to the Homebrewers Conference, so we always joined up. And we rented out, like the Midwest is way cheaper than the West Coast. So we were able to rent out an entire minor league baseball park to throw our party. And they just kept saying yes. We kept coming up with dumb ideas. Can we have a dunk tank? Can we throw darts? Can we do? And they were like, yeah, whatever, man. So, and I just think that it was kind of a time in homebrewing that was really special. Like there was so much buzz going on. There was so much kind of love for the product and the industry that, I don't know, man, it was just a really good feeling at that time,
Where do you feel? So obviously you feel as if, and it's easy to get nostalgic with something, right? And to kind of get those glory day feelings about it. Do you think there's been a shift there? Because I've been very much unplugged from that side of things since really moving in the career direction with beer.
Well, I mean, the Homebrewers Conference was effectively canceled 2 years ago. And that was kind of a broader sign of where homebrewing was going. And that is essentially statistically down. I mean, less homebrewers, less people were in attendance at the event, which was part of the reason, the homebrewing got itself into the same kind of trouble that craft brewing did. Those two trajectories, I think, are the same. And that is, it grew so much that they kept having to find bigger and bigger venues. And then one day they're at the peak size venue and people stop buying tickets to go. And what do you do from there? Homebrewers are a fickle bunch. And because I've been one for so long, and possibly even the voice of so many homebrewers, I don't mind criticizing them a little bit here by saying, like, when the Homebrewers Conference sold out, homebrewers would complain that they couldn't get tickets. So they got bigger and bigger venues. Then they kind of complained that the venues were too big. And then they stopped buying tickets. And then they complained that the event got canceled because it was too expensive to put on. And it's kind of like, guys, how about we pay attention to what's going on here? It's not all about what's going on in your garage if you want these events to take place. And so at that time, there were still more and more brewers that wanted to go and more people getting into the hobby. And then life just changes. Like, here's things that aren't homebrewers' fault or anybody's fault. We get older and we drink less and we have less time. The Brewing Network listeners that started with me 20 years ago, they have kids and soccer and t-ball now, and they didn't when we started. I don't think you had kids when we started, Nils. And
I've always had kids. No, I've always had kids.
You started at 15. I forgot.
It's like one of those things from the beginning of time. I've always had kids. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but so there's this sort of age thing that people forget about when we're looking at things to blame, the pandemic or whatever. We kind of just forget that people age out of drinking a little bit too. And we're seeing that, and we've been seeing that for a while. The rise of craft breweries. So many of my listeners turned into pro brewers. Well, that affected home brewing, like with 5 great craft breweries around the corner from everybody's house. You stopped having to brew so much in your garage. So there was really this like perfect storm where success ended up having some negative impacts. Homebrewing saw a little resurgence like right when COVID hit, right? Because then, even though you had a brewery, 5 breweries around the corner from your house, you weren't allowed to go to them for this like period of time, for this 1-year period of time. So people started buying homebrewing ingredients and equipment like in droves and brewing like crazy. Then they got told to go back to work. So like there's no one thing, but nostalgia aside, I do just remember that at that period of time, the trajectory for brewing and craft beer was just going like crazy. And it was a lot of fun to be a part of. I don't think it's gone, by the way, but evolution has occurred, and now we're part of that.
Sure. I think it's interesting too, where as you were talking about that, I was kind of thinking, I know like the clubs that were around me, sometimes the people in leadership in those clubs were the most seasoned, the very good brewers. And sometimes they were the brewers that ended up starting their own thing. And so sometimes I wonder if there's almost like a little bit of a leadership shift too. You know what I mean? Where you actually have people that were on the leading side or leading groups or helping to show other people things locally hands-on. And then they end up moving into the business side. And I do think it's a struggle as much as you want to maintain your roots. Because I've always said, I would love to have a homebrew collab handle on at a place that I was at. And those things are possible and you can do that and stuff like that. But a lot of times you end up getting caught up in running your business, managing people and everything like that.
And that's certainly, I think that's a great point. And we also ended up with, because of it, kind of this leadership void. But, that kind of happened to me, even in those peak times of the Brewing Network, right? So I didn't go pro brewing per se, but I had to become more of a professional at running my business, which at the time was the Brewing Network. And that meant that I stopped homebrewing like a long time ago. And of course, the joke around here was always that I'm terrible at it, which I am. But I had I had less time to do it. And if I did have time off from work, I wasn't doing stuff with beer. I just kind of needed to do something else. So again, there's sort of this success that bred a bit of a saturation, both in our personal lives and our professional lives and everything else that, that affected things. I mean, beer is cool. Beer is can be so all consuming, and that is negative and positive, right? And I'm not talking about the alcohol part of it. I'm really talking about the culture, the hobby, the things you can do with it. It can really be all consuming, and that's wonderful about it. It also, I don't know, can it chew you up and spit you out a little bit? Maybe, because it's a hustle. To make it in this industry, it is a hustle. Make no mistake, it's a fun hustle, but that this candle has been burnt at both ends. So, and any successful craft brewer, professional craft brewer will tell you that. Wow, there's not one of them that I can think of that's like, what do you mean? I just kind of opened my doors and was successful. That's it.
Yeah,
that just didn't happen.
Well, and especially the days when that happened, because I remember, I mean, Michigan's craft beer scene goes back pretty far, and they've had a lot of breweries for a long time. But even in that kind of, that next wave of craft beer that kind of happened in the, late, 2000 or early 2010s. There was still a little elbow room to get open and kind of figure it out and not be great off the bat. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
Yes. But I do think that window has probably closed. You know what I mean? With the number of places that have opened, and something that I talk to a lot, because a lot of people that follow my stuff are either on the pro side or they're pro curious or whatever. And one of the things I like to talk to them about is great beer isn't, for a brewery, great beer isn't a business plan. Like, first of all, like, I feel as if the super majority of people that are going to be coming in and drinking your beer, the super majority of them can tell the difference between good and bad beer. I think a very small percentage of them can tell the difference between good and great beer. So if the plan is to be great, you're going to be you're missing the point. And listen, everybody wants to make great beer, but there's so many other elements that go into that.
Well, let's compare it to other industries for a second, because I want you to understand how lucky we are that with what you just said, we were allowed to fake it till we make it. Now, if I wanted to be a lawyer, could I open my practice and just sort of be good at it at first and decide to make it? Like while like half my clients go to jail, because I'm figuring it out? Nope. Or what if I was a home welder and I'm like, cool, I'm good enough, and I open a welding shop and you hire me to do stuff that just breaks all the time? Yeah, I'm going to go out of business. Well, in beer, for some reason, this little opening in the cosmos happened where we were kind of allowed to mess around and figure it out. And as long as we were ambitious enough and serious enough to get better all the time, we were allowed to do that. Like the public and the people around us and this great world of craft beer, they let us do that. So we are really lucky to have grown up around that time. Now, and my guy at the Brewers Association, Bart Watson, taught me this and says he's been saying it for years. We are now a mature industry. We've finally grown up. Guess what, guys? We're in our, and I mean, as an industry, when do kids grow up now? Not till they're like 30 something, right? It's not at 18 anymore. We're now 30 something, and we better be good at our job or go find another job. So it's finally this mature industry, and there are growing pains about that. So you're right. I don't think you can open your doors and be a half-ass brewer now. I don't think you can be a half-ass business person now. Even my tap room, which I'm figuring out how to run after a decade, I opened it at a time that I could be sort of good at it and figure it out. And so a mature industry is what we're facing. And that's not a problem per se. But it creates challenges for people who haven't taken their craft seriously, or haven't gone to school, or are not a business major, right? So we're now the real deal, unfortunately, in some ways.
Yeah. And, something that I wanted to discuss with you, and I know that, like reading your bio, I know you like to take a lighthearted approach when looking at yourself and different things like that. But I think it's really interesting how you've made two pretty interesting career moves, and we do like to talk quite a bit with a career focus with the stuff that we're doing, because I think so often people say, well, I want to be a brewer, and so they start washing kegs somewhere. They get to help out with a recipe. They get to turn work. They get to write their own recipe. They're head brewer, and then they're like, well, what the hell do I do now, right? It's like, well, do I go somewhere else? Do I stay here forever? I think a lot of people work themselves into jobs, and I think people think they're getting into a career, right? And when I started thinking about chatting with you, I started to look at that arc for you a little bit. So one, even though I know you like to take yourself lightly, I think it's fascinating that you got into the podcast thing, which it was very early for me. It was when I was still teaching. I had like a 90-minute each way commute, and I found your podcast early on, and it was ridiculous, and it was 3.5 hours long, and I could listen to all of it, and it was fun. It was community building, but it also had great content, and there was tons of it. And so you kind of got in like in an early spot with the podcast thing. And then you also, at least it seems as if in some ways, and maybe you can correct my language, but you end up leveraging what you build through the podcast and through that community somewhat into the Hop Grenade tap room and bottle shop. I'm really fascinated with that. Like if you had to zoom out on it, is this like an arc that you would have seen for yourself? Or how did like unfold? Because I mean, when you started dropping podcasts in 2004,
2005, June of 2005.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of talk to me about like rolling into that, kind of rolling into the podcast side. What was the motivation? And even if it was fun, when did you start shifting gears with it and saying, hey, there's something here that I can that can have legs for me? Or was it always that?
It was always that. It was always that I never wanted to have a real job. I got out of college and decided I don't want a real job. And that, I had watched my parents just make themselves, not just my parents, like my whole family, like extended family, they all just made themselves miserable, like with jobs they didn't like. So, and I too had to work my way through college with jobs I didn't like. And I just knew, that's just not the life I wanted. So when I started the Brewing Network, it was because it was something that I liked, and I did want to make a career out of it. So that was always the plan. I will say that. Whether I could have, whether I knew what the arc was going to be, that's probably not true. But the reason it's called the Brewing Network was very intentional. There's a lot of shows on it, for one, and there weren't when we started. We started as one show. That was my show, but we didn't name it after me or my show because I knew that not everybody wants to listen to me. We needed more content and more voices and more people. I also knew that if it was there were no podcasts when I started. They didn't, or they were just beginning to. So there was no business model around that. So by naming it the Brewing Network, even if I didn't know what the doors were going to be, I was leaving the door open to figure it out. Maybe we were going to be a brewery one day. Maybe we were going to do something else. And so as time went on, it was really hard for the first 5 years of the Brewing Network. It just ran on credit cards and volunteers. And we were about to throw in the towel, more than once. And that during that time, that taught me too, like, well, you better diversify. Because at any moment, this isn't going to make you rich. And there was never a time when I was like, oh, this podcast thing's really going to pan out and make me rich. Mm-hmm. And then Joe Rogan does it. Never be like, so I was wrong. It could make you rich, apparently. But I knew I needed to diversify. And so I had always kind of been in the hospitality industry. That was one of my early career paths. So I knew it. And as I got to know beer and breweries, I knew the business. So it just kind of became a choice. The Hop Grenade itself, that brand became big. It became very recognized, and it just became time to do something with it. And the choice was between opening a brewery and opening a tap room. And because I had made so many friends, and we essentially were like a marketing company for all the breweries in the country at that point, I decided that I shouldn't compete with them and instead just keep doing what I was doing, which is promote them. And that's why we chose a tap room. I still don't really know if that was the best decision. Like, I probably should have opened a brewery, I say some days, and other days when I see breweries failing right now, I think I did exactly the right thing. So it's just a ton of guesswork. But the Brewing Network itself, I was in the right place at the right time. It started as a live streaming radio show. Podcasts were just taking off after we started. So some listener asked me if I would make it a podcast. So as soon as I Googled what that was, I said yes. And home brewers were hungry for resources at that time. There were some books out. There was Palmer and Papazian and some others, Ray Daniels, and there were forums, right? We had a forum too, but we were the first of this kind to like share information through an audio format, like to that extent. So again, that wasn't just some brilliant idea. We were just at the right place at the right time.
Well, and the
rest of the trajectory is feeling it out.
For sure. There's an interesting community build there too, because I mean, there was plenty of people like me who the closest homebrew club was an hour away, and they were really nice guys or whatever, but I was busy with my job, with my kids. And so I needed to have my club whenever I had time. Right. And so for me, the Brewing Network was my club. You know what I mean? It was where I learned my stuff. I was talking to people in the chat. You know what I mean? Like it was that was our community. That was our community. Yeah. So I think I don't know how much like that part was part of your plan, but it was something that you really hit on. The people that came up listening that stuff are very loyal to, you, anybody who helped them, right? Anybody who helped them. Yeah, it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing.
It's probably my favorite thing. I don't know that was fully intentional. I definitely knew, like, the point of starting the show and doing the interviews was that I was surrounded by brewers, really good brewers, and had a lot of dumb questions about brewing. So it was intentional that I thought, if I ask these questions and record them or stream them or whatever I did, other people want the answers. There's so many people like me in this country that want to hear this info. I didn't exactly think that it was because they were in the middle of nowhere and didn't have a club. That was this byproduct. And then because me and the team that started the Brewing Network we just had a lot of fun doing that. That was the community build. Like we just started to really connect with people that way because they felt like us. They felt like they were hanging out with us. And that is hands down. If I leave the industry tomorrow, my favorite part is the community that we built and the feeling that people had conveyed to me that we started, gave them their club, like they finally had a club.
How is that? What is that feeling like? Because I know it can be kind of a twofold thing. People are excited to meet you after they've been listening to the podcast for so long. So whether they go, like full fanning out or, like they're nervous or whatever, or just really, really grateful. What is that like when that stuff starts coming in like that?
So I'm actually an introvert. Not many people know that.
I find that hilarious.
I know, everybody does. If you put a camera and a microphone on me, 100% extroverted. If you put me on a stage in front of, I don't care how many people it is, 5 or 5,000, I am ready to go. But as soon as I'm backstage, I'm pretty quiet and I just want to hang out with people I know. So it was surprising to me and somewhat overwhelming. But I also really enjoy it. I still love meeting brewers. Man, the first time I met a pro brewer at GABF I had seen him win a medal on stage earlier that day. And then he came up to me thanking me for my show. I about cried. Like it was really, that stuff was really cool to me. And so I really like our fans and I love home brewers and brewers. So it's really always been a positive point. But if I'm honest, if you want to know like some personal stuff, I leave events really emotionally exhausted. And part of it is because I really care. So everybody who meets me, I want to give them the Justin that they know. I want to talk with them. I want to find out. And after leaving a weekend event like that, I'm a wreck. Like I can't, I have a hard time sleeping. I'm just exhausted. But I'm saying, I guess I'm telling that story because I think of it as a positive thing. Of all the ups and downs of the Brewing Network, I love meeting our listeners and it means something to me. Like I don't care if they're embarrassed or nerdy or not. It's a highlight for me. But it is, as a person who doesn't see himself as any different than anyone else, it can be really exhausting too. Yeah.
It is. It's a funny thing because even for me, going to conferences now, like they exhaust me in a different way because I'm like a child. I'm like an extreme extrovert. I did a really detailed like 90-minute personality test a few years ago, and it put me like in the 99th percentile for extroversion. So what happens is like once I do something, like when I go out and meet people, like after the stream, I'm gonna be able to feel like I can shoot fire out of my hands for like several hours. So like the problem with streaming at night is I almost can't sleep at all after if I do a podcast late at night. Right. But the flip side is like a child, like I just get like then just completely like emotionally overwhelmed. And like I get crabby or tired or sad or whatever. Right. Just like a toddler. So when you said you're an extrovert, that made me laugh so hard because I can see how that has to like play out for you after a big event like that, those big charged events. Anyways, that's something.
Yeah, I'm an introverted extrovert for sure. And it made me like, I never thought of, in fact, I make fun of beer people who say that they're famous. Like, oh, we're famous. I'm like, whatever, you're sort of beer famous. But I will say that the famous people I used to make fun of for saying like, oh, it's difficult being out there, being famous. I kind of get it. Like there's a certain, if you care about your fans and you want to genuinely interact with them, you're genuinely interacting with a ton of strangers. And that's like not everyone, it's not a normal behavior. Like in the rest of my life, people who don't know if you don't know who I am and you're a stranger, I don't give a shit about you. I'm not going to talk to you. I don't care about strangers unless I need to give you attention for some reason. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So kind of looking at the podcast side of things, what do you feel as if what's something about you, like a characteristic, a choice that you made about kind of that launch period of getting the Brewing Network off the ground? What was it, something from a character standpoint, an interpersonal standpoint, that you brought to the table that helped make that happen?
God, that's a good question.
I'm not trying to make you praise yourself, but I do think it's valuable. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing is something that I didn't know till later that other people told me. And that is that apparently from day one, when I was really just nothing in the garage, I took it very, very seriously. So that whole like fake it till you make it thing, I don't know that was a mantra of mine or anything, but like if I was going to do an interview, I was going to be prepared for it like I was on ABC, like I was doing 2020, right? Like I took my shows and my interviews very seriously. And of course, we were throwing a party on the air in a sense. So it didn't maybe feel like that to our listeners. But to me, for the hours and days leading up to that show, it was the most important thing that I had to do ever. And I think that that was me treating my business that way. So even though we were kind of inventing this medium for beer, I took it like it was the most important thing ever. So I think that took me far. And then, look, I went to school for communication. I do have this like natural curiosity when it comes to interviewers. I am genuinely interested in the people I'm interviewing. And I honestly, it could be almost anybody. I really like to get people's stories out of them. And so I think with my genuine curiosity came this, I think I just have a good ability to get people to talk and to get them to talk about things that make them who they are. And that's interesting to anybody. Like what makes people tick, or what makes their beer what it is, or what made their business successful. That's the stuff anybody wants to listen to. And I became good at that. Like I went to school for communication and broadcasting, but I went to the school of being curious to figure out how to interview people. And I think, yeah, that, and then I cannot discount the cast of characters that ended up being around me in the early days of the Brewing Network. I knew that we needed a doc who could answer every question, like both on the science side of beer and just any bit of it. And it turns out that the doc I found, Dr. Scott, was also hilarious and insane. I knew I needed somebody funnier than me so that when I was being serious in an interview, he could pick up on cues and make people laugh. And JP did that. Daniela and Bevo came in and gave somebody relatable to everybody in the car, not just you driving. And so, I don't know, it was like a combination of all these things that I think other beer shows came up right after we did. And none of them had the right formula. And we did. And so I think it's like that combo of things that really took us to where we went, you know.
Sure. You know, something you said before really rings true with me. I remember when you interviewed Jean Benoit from Cantillon, and I listened to that interview, and it was one of those things like, so, you know, I'm a Midwest guy. I don't always have access to all the beers that I'm hearing about, you know, whether it be in the forums or on podcasts. And sometimes being able to hear those interviews, you know, obviously they're a Mount Rushmore brewery anyways. Don't get me wrong, but you know, it makes you want to be able to go have that experience. And I ended up taking a long, well, not really a long, but a short, long weekend to Belgium several years ago. And the first place we went was Cantillon, and Jean was there. And I went up and spoke to him, and I thanked him for something he said in that interview with you when you asked, was there any pressure to produce their goose faster? And he said, and I can choke up about it talking about it right now. He said, we have to defend our beer. He said, we have to defend our goose. And that gives me goosebumps right now, because I love that. I love the history of beer. I love the family about it. You know what I mean? He ended up sharing a 7-year-old bottle of goose with me on the house. He shared it with us. I'm crying into the glass. You know, it was a beautiful thing, but exactly what you said of being interested in talking to the person, he was able to talk about what he's passionate about with the questions that you were asking, right? And I do think that's a huge part of it. It makes total sense. It makes total sense.
You know, so people are still surprised at how little I even like beer nowadays. And I don't even mean drinking it. I love drinking beer. I love the taste of beer. I don't really want to talk about it outside of the show, but sometimes even inside of the show. Like, beer is a vessel to get through life, to get through culture, to get to something. And so listeners of mine who meet me are sometimes surprised, you know, well, what's your favorite beer right now? What's this? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. But I could tell you that my favorite time was talking to Jean at Cantillon. I could tell you that listening to Sully or listening to Ken Grossman, like, I can tell you that hearing these stories that these guys have to tell, now that I'm excited about. So I've just kind of always been that way, you know.
Sure. Well, that's awesome. So kind of taking things, kind of looking at this shift then between, but it's not a real shift because there's still carryover. You podcast at the Hop Grenade, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
So
I'm the studios in the Hop Grenade. Yeah.
That's so awesome, by the way. I think that's like you said, like you want to work without ever working. Like that's a great scenario to have, right? To like be able to build that thing into that. Talk to us a little bit about that shift or that evolution from podcast to podcast and tap room. What did that look like?
So you said something earlier in this interview where you were listening to the show, and actually just a minute ago, I think you said, and you couldn't always get these beers like that we were talking about. And that was a common piece of actually positive feedback that we got all the time. That was like, love the show, love the antics, love the information. The only thing I am pissed off about is we hear you every Sunday trying these beers that we can't have.
Yeah.
And that's actually started me thinking about putting the studio in a tap room. It was that feedback, because I was like, oh, that's a good point. I would be pretty annoyed with that too. What if one day we could put the show in a bar where at least some people, whoever I was interviewing, their beer's on tap, and if you were local, you could come try it. And that was the idea that just came out in my head somewhere long ago. And then no one ever offered us a bar to do that, so we built one. The Moskowitz family came along and liked my idea and helped me build and finance it. And it was at a time in our lives when, like I said, I kind of knew I needed to diversify. I had no idea where podcasting could keep going. We had a small staff of people and none of us were making it rich. And so the idea was like, let's just diversify. Let's try something. And I think we'll be good at this. I think we're going to just keep promoting great breweries. Let's put the studio in the bar, and let's just keep trying this. And it really worked. That was 2014 that we opened the Hop Grenade. So, and it was an instant success. People loved the concept, and even people walking in who had no idea what the Brewing Network was loved seeing this little fishbowl of a studio over in the corner. And we were streaming the audio out into the tap room back then. We stopped doing that because people stopped caring, but back then it was a novelty, and it was really cool. So to me it was an evolution of the brand. Let's open a tap room. We named it after the logo because the Brewing Network is a terrible name for a bar. Sure. So we named it the Hop Grenade, and and it's worked. Like any restaurant and bar, it's been tough since COVID, since 2020. It's a work in progress, but that evolution started then, and I'm super glad we did it. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations since then. We opened one in Colorado that we closed after, I don't know, 3 years or something. Now we're back to just our Concord location, and I'm glad I did it. Like I knew, like I've been saying, and I would recommend it to anybody. Some people have the argument that they say be good at one thing. They say be great at one thing. And I'm not against that. That is one way to live your life. But to me, I always needed to diversify. I'm too scared to just stick with one thing. I feel like I need something to fall back on all the time.
One of the things that I've noticed as I've moved through my career is I think in general, and maybe it's just me, but you kind of want comfort, like you want work to be great. You want home to be great. You want your friends to be great. You want all these things. And it's sometimes you end up hitting those rough patches, and the rough patches can really hurt. Even when, and this is one of the things that kills me, the older I get, when I hit those things, I know that's my opportunity to level up. And I'm not trying to sound like one of those hustle business guys, like you just need to be working 3 days a day or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, I know that when those things hit, that's when I'm getting better. That's when I'm growing. That's when I'm being stretched. So like, what were some of those moments for you? Because that's not a snap of the fingers evolution from saying, hey, I'm running this podcast company, this marketing company, but now we're also going into the hospitality side. What were some of those pinch points? What were some of the things that hurt and some of the growth that came from it?
Everything. It still hurts. It hurts right now.
I'm still in pain. It's just been pain for 11 years.
Yeah, 11 years of pain. I joke like that because I don't know exactly how to answer it. A criticism I have for myself is that I'm but what have you done for me lately? kind of person to myself. So I have a constant, it's both positive and negative. I'm constantly pushing to do something else. At the same time, I have a hard time like just going like, oh, hey, you did this, you did that. Let's sit and celebrate that. Let's enjoy the moment. So I think I'm just constantly ready to move to the next thing. And I think that's good for a lot of things. It's good to try new things. And it's bad because I would recommend that people enjoy the moment and their successes a little more. Like sometimes those pinch points you're talking about can be self-inflicted. You know, maybe there was times I should have doubled down more on the podcast and the Brewing Network, and could have ended up in a Joe Rogan contract with Spotify or something. Who knows, you know? But it is what it is, and it's who I am. And so for me, there's just so many, you know, ambition, I guess, is my pinch point, that I always want to just keep trying to do the next thing. When I think I also experienced, I don't think it's that big of a secret, I experienced a lot of burnout on the show. You know, after about 15 years of the Brewing Network, maybe even a little sooner, it was tough, man. Getting sponsors was tough. We had, I don't know, tens of thousands, 100,000 listeners. We had over 1 million downloads a year. We were the #1 podcast on this list and that list. And we were still struggling to get sponsors every single year. And that, like, you know, it became tough. You know, we did everything right, in my opinion, about like now content creation is a buzzword. It's a career. Oh, I'm a content creator. I never called myself a content creator. It was a byproduct of our hard work. What we were doing, I guess the result was we created a bunch of content. But, you know, monetizing that, the models weren't quite there, and it was difficult to figure out. And so I experienced a lot of burnout, and that also pushed me toward the hop grenade. You know, the bar and restaurant industry, that's a formula. Yes, you have to still find a little magic, and you have to create a third space that people want to hang out in. But at least there was a book that you could fall back on. Like, I didn't feel like I was reinventing the wheel every day. And the Brewing Network, from like day one, I felt like we had to invent a wheel every day. And that just, there was some burnout. And so that's like that sort of necessity breeds invention kind of thing. Like I just wanted to move on to some other things because I knew I needed it in my life too. So I'm not sure that's the answer you were looking for, but those.
No, I like it, man. I like it. And actually I want to ask you this question. Something that I wrestle with myself when I was making beer, this is something that started to make me question what my motivations were in brewing. And this was even early on the pro side. I remember saying to myself and talking with my brewing buddies, I'm like, so at that time you could enter like 5 beers in GABF or whatever. Say I entered 5 beers in GABF and I won 5 golds, and we won Brewery of the Year, Brewer of the Year, all that stuff. How long am I happy? If I'm being honest,
that night.
It's very short, because then what it becomes to me is, if I don't do it the next year, it was a fluke.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is me stepping out and saying, I personally have to balance what I have previously called passion and ambition. And I do have those things, but I also can say that they're, especially at sometimes more than others, but I've definitely been ego driven as well. And I think sometimes I drive my own unhappiness with those things. Right.
Yeah.
How much has that been something that kind of you struggle with too? Or is that because I do feel like I'm a high motor guy. I want to learn it all. I want to be great at stuff. And I think those are all the good, but I think the problem is potentially this little program that runs in the back of my brain that I'm not always aware of. That's maybe motivated by a little bit something else. Does that sound crazy to you, or something you can?
No, but there is medication for that. Just so you know.
How dare you?
Yeah, so 100%, and the ego part, to me, I don't know that everybody understands what that can be many things to people, right? Like some people think, like, if I say that I have an ego and that I'm a narcissist, which by the way I will say all the time, they think that means like that I want to be loved and that I think I'm the best and all. It actually means I think I'm better than this. Every day I'm like, you're better than this, do better. Like that's the ego part to me, is I'm very hard on myself, like let's do better, because I guess what I have is I have high self-esteem, that I'm like, you can do this, man, you're better than this. But that driving force can be, that's that, that voice in the back of your head that I do think there needs to be a healthy balance, which I'm only just getting a hold of in my, I guess late 40s now. Like to find because I don't hate that voice. I don't at all. I know that it has put me where I am today. It helped you start Adam Makes Beer. It helped you get every job you've gotten since you left teaching. Probably helped you get the teaching jobs. It's not a negative voice, but not having a balance, or like reining it in, or stopping to smell the flowers, or any cliche you could put there, those are real. Those things are real, and that's where burnout comes from. And also, like your mental health is important. I've learned over the years, like late, unfortunately, I have an incredibly gnarly case of attention of ADD, ADHD, I guess it's called now. I don't care. It's like there are times that it can be debilitating, and when you learn about what it is, I can see some of my career path and go like, oh yeah, that day that was ADD talking. That wasn't even you. When you said yes to that project, that was this real condition that you have that had you make decisions that you might not otherwise had made if you knew it was your ADD talking. And so for those of us who can maybe bounce from either career to career or project to project is more what it is with me. There's some mental health issues that go on there. And it doesn't mean I'm insane, although I joke that I am. It just means I've had to learn these sort of coping mechanisms to carry on with my ambitions and with my life, and know that there is this other part of me that will try to take control, or at least push me in ways that I need to stop and think about. Right. And that's what I think that's what you're talking about. That those of us with that, or who just don't know how to kind of go, hey, you've made it, or you did this thing, you won 5 golds in your brewery of the year. It's time to look back, look at the amount of work that you put in, look at the team that brought you here, and celebrate that, and just go like, man, you did exactly the thing you've been trying to do. And that's like the moment that I think is important to have, because otherwise you're just always trying to do a thing. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to do a thing. Now I'm going to do a thing. But if you accomplish it, I think it's important to go, you did the thing, man. Good job. Right? Like, and if you don't find a way to feel that, it will lead to burnout and unhappiness. Like you said, like kind of, I'm just always searching for a piece of happiness,
How do you draw the line? Because I know on the brewer side of things, and maybe somebody might not like this opinion. I don't think it's the best decision for a brewer to be spending a lot of time at the bar after a shift every day. Mm-hmm. I think you're asking for trouble. So that's what I'll say. I think you're asking for trouble as a brewer if you're going out every day and having a lot of beers at the bar where you work. I think you're asking for trouble. The problem is on the brewer side. I even see people advertise this, and it actually makes me angry. I saw a job posting where somebody was like, one of the perks was people will think it's cool that you're a brewer. It's like, well, no, just actually tell me how you're going to compensate me. Don't try to load up a section with something cheap. Okay. So,
right.
but anyways, how do you draw that line? Because we work in intrinsically social environments. We also work in an environment where, for many of us, people are interested in seeing us because we're somebody that's helping to facilitate the fun, right? Where everybody is gathering around the beers that you make. You walk out of the brewery, generally people are excited to see you. It's easy to belly up and stay there for a while. How do you draw that line? Because you're not on the production side, but you're on the tap room side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I love this question because it's only being talked about now. And I have failed at this balance I have succeeded and failed at this balance my entire career. You know, I sort of would joke early on in the podcast, like, man, like that Grand Rapids time I was talking about, where the trajectory was going like this. It seemed like everybody was making beer and drinking beer, and we're selling beer, and I was like, this can't be good in the long term, health like money wise. This is great for everybody right now.
Yeah.
But health wise, one of these days, this is going to catch up with us. I knew it then. And now I think is that time that A, it's catching up with us, and B, people are starting to become aware of it. So I don't think that there's a right formula for everybody. This is very different for everybody. And it's also, it depends on where you are in your life. But it takes self-awareness is, I think, the key to this. The problem with our industry is that we also serve a product that can have a disease attached to it. Alcoholism is a disease, and it may run in your family. You may acquire it through your own actions, but it's an actual disease that runs right alongside of us. And so figuring out those of us who can navigate this alongside of the disease is kind of the crux, right? It's not having the disease of alcoholism. So I've been a heavy drinker since my teenage years. And I knew that back then, and I knew that through most of my career. I luckily was pretty much able to balance that and not just, go full bore at any real time, although I have had a lot of fun through this career. What I've noticed is as I got older, I'm not able to drink all the beer and do all the work. I'm not able to just be a functioning whatever. And like these things have changed. Your brain chemistry changed, your physiology changes. I think people don't talk enough about brain chemistry. That hangover that you feel, it's not just sickness in your body, it's up here too. And that can affect your work the next day. Just because you're able to get up and go to work doesn't mean your brain's working like it should. So I agree with you that the advice should be that you don't hang out at the bar every night. There's not a person on earth, and there's not a doctor on earth who will tell you, 5-6 beers a night, no problem. It feels like no problem when you're young and like able to handle that and get up and go to work. But I will say, if you didn't spend all the years doing 5 nights a week at the bar, you'd probably be even further in your career. And I think that's important for people to remember. Like, just because you're doing it doesn't mean you're doing it at your best. And then on top of that, everything is going to catch up with you eventually. It just happens.
Sure.
It's going to catch up with you. So what I like about your question, Mills, is just the conversation, because that's exactly what it is. I'm not advocating that we all quit drinking beer. Obviously, I sell beer for a living and I talk about beer for a living, but I don't drink very often anymore. Yeah. And that was just a personal choice about like, okay, I'm facing new challenges in my life. And am I equipped to handle those challenges if I'm catching a buzz every night? And the answer for me was that no, I was no longer equipped to keep handling those challenges. So I enjoy beer on special occasions. I still like to catch a buzz. I still will party. Don't get me wrong. I haven't turned into a monk.
Sure.
But I have learned about myself and where I am at this point in my life. So I just think as brewers coming up, develop good habits and pay attention to yourself. You all know what developing bad habits look like. Like, that's a piece of cake. I can do that. I'll develop a bad habit right now. I walk out this door.
I'll do it right now. I'll do it right now.
No problem. There's tell
me I can't.
But developing good habits, that's a little tougher, but it takes you farther. And I know this sounds a little cheesy, but it is the answer to your question. Like, this industry, it can chew you up and spit you out. I said it already. So if you really love it, if you really want to be in it, if you really want to enjoy the industry and enjoy the beer for as long as possible, then the best thing you can do is practice that moderation and be present about what you're doing. I'm not saying don't go have fun. Have all the fun.
100%. And, I feel like so often when I go to beer things now, and this isn't like me preaching from the mountain or being holier than thou. First of all, I get tired. Okay. And if I'm going to spend that late night, I was out for CBC. I got together with a dear friend of mine. Most evenings I was in early, but I was out pretty late once, and it was the most I drank once, and it was with somebody that I love, like somebody who's dear to me. Right.
Yeah.
And it's a friend, And so there's that. And I remember there was a period of time where I thought, like, okay, I'm at conferences. I'm going to network. I'm going to meet people, and I'm going to make connections. And I remember it was back in Michigan. It was the Michigan Brewers Guild conference. They shout out to the Michigan Brewers Guild. They put on a great conference, and we're out somewhere at some resort, and it's getting late, and I'm like, I think I'm going to turn in, but I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just have another one and try talking to some people. So grab another beer, start talking with a guy from a big production facility there in Michigan. And we're talking, laughing, we're telling stories, we're talking beer. Like, this is really, really good. I'm like, all right, like, I'm doing my thing. I'm meeting people, whatever. This is one of the things I'm here for. So I go to bed, and I get up in the morning. I go to the breakfast buffet. The guy standing in front of me that I was talking to last night. And I'm like, hey, man, how's it going? And he turns around and looked at me, and he goes, oh, hey, I'm Tim, and stuck his hand out. His name wasn't Tim, but he didn't remember a moment of meeting me, our conversation. Right. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it's I don't know. It's a balance. Yeah. And it is a tough thing to navigate, especially and again, this is my 48-year-old showing, but as a younger person, you know what I mean? Because those conferences are fun. Those festivals are fun. The booze is free. Everybody wants a drink in your cup all the time, and everybody's happy to see you. Right.
And it's, and you should. There's a reason that for ages, beer is a social lubricant. It should be used as a social lubricant. That's okay. And I think we're just now starting to redefine what that means with these types of conversations, and all of that is okay. Obviously, to me, the only thing that's not okay is being unhealthy and alcoholism and being detrimental to your own life and career. Those things aren't okay. But if you want to stay out too late with your best friend, and that makes you feel good, and you connect in way, like, that's okay with me. I love all of this. I'm going to the baseball game tonight with my good friend Chris White. He's flying up to see me, and I'm going to have a couple beers tonight. And then I might not for a month or a week or whatever it is. But what I'm doing is instead of the default being, well, guess we're having beers tonight. The default is I'm trying to do something a little more intentional with my time and with my body, and the celebration or the exception or the treat is that I'm going to have a couple beers tonight. And for me, and at this point in my life, that's working for me. Absolutely. For someone starting their career, just sort of back to your question, don't be too hard on yourself. You're going to make a whole bunch of mistakes, both in the brew house and outside of the brew house. Yeah. But I'm asking you to spend time thinking about your drinking. That's all. And if you've got a good reason, or a good occasion is probably the better way to say it.
Sure.
But don't just get off work and because the habit is to have 5 beers at the tap room that you work out. I think you should spend time thinking about why that's the habit, and it's probably not a good one.
Yeah. So, you have me thinking. So, tip of the hat on, 11 years with the Hop Grenade, and kind of putting together this and the conversation we're having right now. How are you seeing the alcohol culture shift? Whether you feel as if it's just like in your area, California, the US, but like how are you seeing those changes locally there?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a change, and you can read about it every day, and someone says there is a change and someone says there isn't a change. There's a change in people's behaviors, and to me, I was going to say twofold, but it's probably even more than twofold. So, like, for one, the people who have grown up with the Brewing Network and the Hop Grenade, so people we would call regulars, super fans, whatever. There's a good percentage of those people who are aging out of drinking, right? For one reason or another. The issue becomes that they're not fully being replaced, like with new drinkers, which is okay. I guess we want people to be healthy and make good decisions with themselves, but we've built an industry on people who like to come out and have a couple of drinks. So what do we do about that? And I don't have the answer to that. I do think, again, conversations about why we drink and what we drink are important, because the alcohol industry is never going away, and beer's never going away. So it's just it's finding out where we fit into people's lives. And unfortunately for us, this is one of those moments where nobody knows the answer. So there's a lot of fallout because of it as we figure it out. And those of us who continue in the conversation and figure it out will stay open. Or maybe we evolve into a new concept. We sell wine here now for the first time ever, just because we used to be able to just sell beer, and that didn't
When
work
did you
anymore.
make that change?
It's only been about 6 months now.
6 months.
And it's opened up some new things for us. In California, with that license, we're allowed to do catering as well. So that's we found another issue is not just that people aren't drinking, it's that even people that are drinking, they're not drinking out as much. COVID got us to stay home. And so this catering license thing kind of taught us, like, all right, well, if you won't come to me, I'll go to you. I have a 1968 Volkswagen tap bus. I love old Volkswagens, and I had 6 taps out the side. And the idea is, if you're throwing a backyard party like you want to do now, we'll come to you with the cool stuff you're used to drinking at Hop Grenade. So it's not just figuring out that people aren't drinking; it's figuring out how they are and what they want. We're certainly finding, again, that there's a less percentage of people that are not drinking than we think. It's that they're choosing occasions to drink. They're being a little more intentional, like I am. Bart Watson said it at the Craft Brewers Conference this time. He said the volume isn't exactly down, but occasions are down. Meaning we're just choosing specific times to go out to your place and drink. So I think, if I'm probably paraphrasing, but if his advice, if I had it right, was, since there are fewer occasions, what's going to make them choose you for their occasion? And that's sort of how we make it in this world. And so we're trying to think of events all the time, just like everybody else. But there's this perfect storm that has happened since COVID, right? There's people's habits changed, young people drinking less, older people aging out of drinking. It's all happening, lucky for us, at our time right here. And we need to figure it out, or like open a sandwich shop, right? Because this is what we do. So yeah.
Absolutely. So what are you seeing, whether it be from a customer demand standpoint, or from the brewer side, or maybe split them up? How are brewers' tastes changing, and how's the customer base changing? Because sometimes there can be some overlap there. I feel like we are getting to the point where We're seeing some brewers get some small wins by being able to get a little bit more lighter lager on tap, or various types of lager on at different times. What are some of those trend shifts that you see going on in your area as far as customer preference or brewer preference?
So yeah, fully anecdotal, of course, but I think so the lagers are here. Lagers are a thing finally. Their craft brewers have perfected it finally. So, almost all the craft brewers now know how to make a wonderful lager or light lager, Mexican lagers, like all the styles. And we're seeing those varieties. And I love that. But that popularity, that's for our age group, you and me, Mills, and higher. But that's okay, because we are still customers. We are only 48, Mills, which I had to tell myself.
Are we both today, 48?
I'll be 48 next month, dude. So
do you know, literally, Tom Brady and I have the identical birthday. And while he was still playing when he was still playing in the NFL, I was able to tell myself I haven't lost it. But anyways, I've had to try to convince myself in other ways now. But you were saying, I'm sorry.
Well, I do like to, I struggle with age, and my recent mantra is like, I will never be as young again as I am today. So I'm just trying not to feel old every day with that. The lager situation is great, and it's great for people like me and you and the age group above us. So that's keeping people coming to the tap house. So I think that's wonderful. The younger generation, I don't know, Mills. Honestly, I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm asking people every day. People tell me like, well, you need to put in a beer slushy machine. I don't think that's the answer. One bar will tell me that that's like saving their life, and the next one will be like, I can't give that stuff away. I think the key to people of all ages, but the younger generation is the one driving it. It's experiences. I'm just going to go back to that. So what does a beer style what does a style mean to an experience? How does it make them feel? Like, that's what, young people talk about, how they feel more than we ever did. So I don't know how to answer that in terms of styles. I do know, or I at least strongly think that the answer is how we are able to make people feel. That seems to be the key to getting people to come to our place. And so that might be that we're having tie-dye night, or I don't know what, like, arts and crafts, and you name it. And then providing them with a beverage that helps them remember that experience. Like, the beverage is just a part of the experience. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. I haven't figured out yet. We started a vinyl night here, which is not a new concept. I am not reinventing the wheel with that. But the way we do it is a little bit like they just get to own the record machine. People, they get to play one whole side when they come in. We're not like picking songs. My sign-up sheet for Vinyl Night is really long, and it's because those people are hanging out talking about the records that they brought, and they bring some terrible things, and they're still talking about it with each other. They love it. And so that's like one success we've had that to me is 100% an example of the experience. And of course, they're drinking pints of beer during that, but the pints of beer are so secondary to them talking about music together. And so that's what I think we have to keep figuring out.
I heard an interview with the brewer at one point, and I think pretty much, maybe almost exclusively, what he makes is Helles. I forget who he is, where he is, or name of the brewery, whatever. But he had a quote that I absolutely loved. He apparently makes a bunch of Helles. The whole podcast was about Helles. And he said, like, my hope is that the person across from you is more interesting than the beer you're drinking. Like, and I love that, because, I do think, being, I used to teach history, and I'm such like I love food. I love culture. That's what it's about. Like, beer is supposed to be, it's supposed to be that facilitator, right? It's supposed to be that thing that you can gather around. And if you want to nerd out, you can. If you want to dip into that side, you can. But like, there's something, it's part of the occasion, right? Or it's something that facilitates the occasion. And
so let me throw a curveball into this for you,
sure.
because you're right that I'm throwing this curveball in.
Okay.
So the San Francisco Restaurant Association recently had a symposium among themselves, and they had like what's the newest generation, like Gen Y or whatever? They had like one Gen Y restaurateur in there with them who had these like great insights. And the insight was, because you're talking about this social aspect of drinking. The insight was, you and me and every other generation from like 18 to whatever, like this 4 or 5 year period, we were taught to socialize. We got taught by our older brothers and sisters. We got taught by our aunts and uncles. Like we were drinking at keggers, we were overindulging. Actually, the words he used was, we got taught how to party. And he's right. I was partying from 17 to I don't know what, and I got taught by the older kids around me. I never thought of it that way, but I learned to socialize, and then I carried that on throughout my life. Like it became a part of my life, going to the bar, having fun, having a beer, and talking. Okay, well, the COVID kids, they spent 18 to 20 sitting at home, or with masks on their face. And they were not going and doing keg stands because they would have caught COVID by sharing a hose. Like all of these things that I sort of knew had happened, but I didn't really think about it in those terms. So now you have this generation that didn't get taught how to party. So yes, I can open my doors and offer them a social venue, but they don't know how to use it in some cases. So that's what I mean by experiences too. Like a great event is one that takes these otherwise antisocial kids and helps them be social. They need more of we just needed a beer to loosen up.
Yeah.
Well, they need something more than that, because they weren't taught even how to loosen up outside of at home.
Yeah.
And so that's a real challenge that we face, is this generation of kids that has to be taught how to party, in a sense. That's an over exaggeration to say it that way, but
No, I get it. So you just added wine 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Is that
we weren't allowed to have a wine license since we started, because whoever our ABC person was, California, like every state, laws were weird. We were told we didn't sell enough food to be able to have minors in the place and have wine, because we wanted parents to be able to bring their families. So it was only recently we got an ABC agent that was like, yeah, of course you sell enough food, just apply for the license. So anyhow, sorry to cut you off, but yes, that's why we haven't had it for a decade. And then we recently got it to expand our horizons, and it's already been great because we're getting more private parties now. People wouldn't choose us because when you're doing a private event or something, half the people might not like beer. Well, you're not going to choose the hop grenade then. You're going to choose a place with everything. So being able to diversify that part has been huge.
Yeah. What has been, because essentially at this point, from our previous conversation, you have somewhat of the role of GM, like functionally at the hop grenade. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
So that's its own thing. What's been one of the wins from that? Something maybe that you were nervous about, but then you got into it, and you realized that, hey, we can accomplish that this way, something like that.
Yeah, every restaurateur out there is just going to think I'm a moron for even saying this, but it's that I now actually realize that it makes a difference that I know how my business runs inside and out every day, every little detail. So I've always known about my restaurant. I have always been here, but I did sort of operate from the top down and let my staff run things. And when there were issues, they would come up to me and I would help solve problems. But I wouldn't have to, or I wouldn't dive into a lot of the minutia because I was paying people to do that. Well, when you see the tiniest of things, any example, what you're paying for paper towels in the bathroom, or the medium things like, okay, tap number 7 wastes 4 ounces of every pour, but every other tap works perfectly. There's a lot of things like that you really should know, and I probably should have known all along. That's why I'm saying restaurateurs will just laugh at me. But I had another business to run, and anyway, now that I'm in here every day, and I'm counting the tips for everybody, and I'm running. It has been a positive experience for me and the restaurant, because I'm able to figure out what else needs to be fixed. I used to get called for the big problems and fix them, and now I'm fixing all the problems, and that has been helpful because the fixes are more in line with what I want to see my restaurant doing. So I absolutely here's an example. I love my staff. I just think they're the coolest team ever. Turns out though, we have a customer service problem. Even though they're wonderful people, and that's why I love them so much, I found that when I wasn't around, they weren't giving the greatest customer service. And since day one, customer service has been my number one thing. I want everyone to get treated like royalty when they come in here. I just think that's the most important thing. And I sort of found out that wasn't happening. And not because they meant it or because they're bad people or whatever, but because there wasn't somebody here telling them every day or helping them learn to become better at those interactions with customers. And that's been a huge win for us. We've gotten more compliments recently since I've been the everyday GM that wow, your staff is so friendly. I didn't know about this place. They're so helpful. And those are the things I always thought we were doing. And apparently we were missing a few of the points that were really important to me. So becoming the day-to-day GM, which I never wanted to do, that's not why I opened the Hop Grenade, has been positive for me and the business for sure.
Are you familiar with Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table?
Yes. Yeah.
That was one of my takeaways from that, was just that notion from a managerial standpoint. One of your responsibilities is just continuing to move that salt shaker back to the center of the table. And sometimes we can get frustrated, because a lot of times I do think people say, well, I shouldn't have to tell somebody this, or I shouldn't have to tell somebody this again, or whatever. But yes, agreed. You want to train people well. You want them to carry out, but there is something intrinsic to that management position of consistently moving that back to the center. Now, I'm quoting it. Believe me, I've not mastered that. I'm going to get out of this podcast and be instantly irritated with my children. But what were you going to say?
Well, that's absolutely right, and that I hate that it's right. I don't like that part of people. I don't like it about myself. That, yes, that we have to continuously be told to do something like that. So I have always handed down these advice and directives, I guess, this is how I want people greeted. This is what I would like done. This is how we do service. And then I would go off on the Brewing Network and do my other job. And it turns out that when I'd come back, that those things, started for a week or so, and then they weren't done. So you're right. And I hate that you're right, and that setting the table is right. I wish it wasn't that way, but I guess I've started to accept that that's just sort of human nature, and nobody is going to love my business as much as I do. So all of this staff, who I love very much, and they give so much effort to my place. I do not want to sound like they don't, because they do. They just don't love it as much as I do. They have a whole other life to live. And I have to respect that, and I have to understand that, and I have to stop being frustrated that I have to tell them again. And I have very recently stopped being frustrated, and instead embraced the role and just gone hey, this is okay. They want to be here still, or they would have left. Yes. They don't mind you telling them over and over again, or they would have left. Yes. So this, it's been a growing phase for me in that regard.
Yeah. Well, Justin, I love it. Honestly, I could talk to you for a long time, just because there is that thing. It's fun to have you on the podcast. It's you forget having a conversation with somebody that you've spent a lot of time with, listening to online and hung out with on occasion. the brain is such a crazy thing. The nostalgia that got brought up to me as you were naming names, and yes, I am getting older and I do get more easily emotional these days. But I tell you what, you almost choked me up a few times when you were talking about some of the old days and some of the people. I'm personally grateful, and a big drive in what I'm trying to do is continue what you did for me, what you and everybody involved with the Brewing Network did for me. So anyways, it was a huge pleasure chatting. I do hope to be out to GABF. I'd like to catch up with you there too. But before we go, is there anything that you want to? Is there any way that people can give you a follow online? Keep an eye out for what you have going on, both with the BN and with the Hop Grenade.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're just, all of our hashtags or whatever they're called on social media is Brewing Network or Hop Grenade. That's what we are on Instagram. Those are our more active channels recently. Instagram, I mean, we do a little bit of Facebook and stuff. The podcast, I try to do as much as I can. It's far less than it used to be. I try to get like at least one done a month now. So you'll still find that on the brewingnetwork.com. And other than that, I'm still lucky enough that the Brewers Association continues to allow me to do all the awards streaming, which are I don't know why, I can't even put my finger on it. Maybe it's because I'm older and emotional like you, Mills, but I still love streaming those awards shows because I get to see all you brewers, like how much it means to you to win those awards. And I'm a sucker for it. So you can still catch all of those on our YouTube channel. We still get to do every Great American Beer Festival, every World Beer Cup. The GABF is the one that's coming up next. And the Homebrewers Conference, I just did, the Homebrewers Awards rather. So those are all on our YouTube channel. And we're going to continue to find ways to bring you content. I'm just settling in here at the Hop Grenade. And once I get this kind of back to where it needs to be, I'll be back producing more content for y'all. So yeah. And Mills, dude, thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm happy to see you. One thing I'm not surprised about you is that with that wall behind you, it looks like you're sitting in a prison.
God damn it. You're the second person that's told me that. I'm working on things, Justin.
Just hang a thing. Just put up stick a Post-it on the, I don't know what. But I'm proud of you for branching out, and I'm very thankful to be on your show. I can tell that people really like your content. So, yeah, man, if we had any part in motivating you to do this, then I'm proud of that, and keep up the good work, dude.
Awesome, brother. We'll stick on, but when I jump off the stream here real quick, and just thanks to the chat, appreciate everybody being in there. Keep an eye out for all the stuff that we have coming out, because the stuff keeps coming. Give a shout to my dear friends at Blickman and that beautiful man, David Lentz at Brewed Fiscally. But anyways, appreciate y'all joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.